I'm ready to go live. All right. Greetings and salutations, test takers. Welcome to our Tuesday night live stream Q&A. Ask the Series 7 Guru anything. It's a little more helpful if you stick to FINRA and NASA things, because that's the kind of things we know. We have our always very special guest, Brian Lee, managing member of Test Geek Exam Prep LLC. And we'll get rid of some housekeeping, and then we'll get going helping you with any content questions we can. So tell us what series exam you're taking and where you're joining us from. We'll see who wins the award for joining us from furthest distance. We do have people in Brazil, and we have people who join us from India. So just tell us where you're joining us from and what exam you're taking. If you do have a question for us, once we get the housekeeping out of the way, it's not necessary, but it's helpful because there's a lot of content that overlaps. But the way it's asked on different exams can be more shallow or more deep. And so it's helpful you tell us in the chat what exam you're taking, followed by the question, SIE or Series 7. A lot of times we can pick it up based on the nature of the question, but it's just helpful. You're not alone. Besides this community, feel free to join us here in this community, Series 7 Guru Nation. But we also have, let me get rid of that. Boom, boom, boom. We have a Facebook community, Baby Brokers Doing Hat Tricks. We're coming up on 3,000 members in that group. We are the most active FINRA and NASA test-taking tribe out there. There's study groups being formed all the time. There's people who have questions, people answering. So check that out if you're to Facebook. We also have Reddit communities. We have a subreddit for the Series 6. We have a subreddit for the SIE and Series 7. We have a subreddit for the NASA exams, 63, 65, 66. R Series 66, and we have a subreddit for 9, 10s, and 24s. If you are looking for a free supplement to your paid study materials, you're at the right place. This YouTube channel is the best free supplement for your paid study materials. Please note, supplement, right? I've organized the channels with series playlists. So if you're taking the SIE, for example, you'll see a podcast overview, gives you kind of a look of the terrain. I would prefer you read the book, but some people don't read the book. So if you're not going to read the book, watch that podcast series. Brian and I have done the same for the 65, 66. The second playlist is usually lectures. My cram course, the equivalent of the 3-day, 4-day SIE class you would join me for. There's practice tests, practice questions. So that's how we've organized. You want to binge, that's the way to do it. Go to the series playlist and do it. It's buffet. Take what you like, leave what you don't. Now, if you're looking for a particular topic, Brian and I are more than happy to answer your questions. But we know that this evening, we're going to get asked questions we've asked and been asked and answered many, many times. And if you're looking for something like that and you're not here on the Tuesday Live, go into the channel search bar, put in margin, accrued interest, debenture, whatever it is you're looking for, and that content will magically appear. So don't forget that search bar. I think that's the way to actually go about finding stuff like that. Now, if you're looking for a paid supplement to your study materials, I think the two best paid supplements, where is my banner for Brian? There we go, is Kaplan. If you don't have a Kaplan QBank on Series 7, for example, with my 15% discount code, you can get a Kaplan QBank with 3,600 plus performance opportunities. More importantly, a performance tracker. How often does this happen, Brian, where people don't even know the extent of the Kaplan QBank and how you can customize it? I had a guy today, and he had a Kaplan question. I said, well, do you have a QID? No, I just printed it on his print. I go, okay, well, let's go find it. And I went to the custom quiz. He goes, I can make custom quizzes? Yeah, you can do practice tests. So if you don't have that, please get it. I think it is the best QBank of all the test prep vendors. And that's what gives, I think, Kaplan its edge. Now, if you're looking for another great paid supplement, is Brian, the Test Geek supplement. That's a series of videos he's done. And boy, I'm not very good at making editorial decisions. So I have over 2,400 videos. I don't have the expectation to watch all 2,400 of my videos. But if you're looking for distillation of just those things that you might need to know for your test, check out Brian's video course. He's been kind enough to give us a 20% discount, our viewers. And the discount code there is Guru20. That's about $100 all in. He does sell those individual pieces a la carte, but I would suggest it's not a time to be frugal. If you have the resources, do that. Now, I get this question all the time, Brian. Brian is not a substitute for your primary study materials. He's a supplement. We're bridges from, your study materials to the test. So, we have people sometimes who do that, Brian, and they pass and they tell other people. I wish if they did that, they'd just keep their mouth shut, because then people think they can, take some shortcut to get it done. All right. I think that's all the housekeeping. So let's see. Oh, one more thing. At the end of this, I don't know how I could be any clearer, Brian. If you win our coaching call at the end, you do not win a tutoring session at a date and time of your choice. You win a coaching call. The link is on my booking page. So you would go there and you'd see coaching call and you would register for the coaching call. That's what you win. I just had a guy who won the coaching call and he said, I won the tutoring. I said, you did not win tutoring. He says, I want my tutoring tomorrow. I'm testing Wednesday. I go, that's not what you won. You want access to the coaching call. Now, there's not anything that's free. The entire YouTube channel is free. Almost nothing on that booking page is free, except if you win the coaching call. I have opened up my office hours to people who are not paid students, just because access is becoming difficult because I'm a little oversold. So you can also find that for free there on the class tab. We also do a weekly Q&A jam session. That too is free. So there are some free things on my booking page. We have a book club. I haven't come up with our new title. Usually our book club, same thing. You go to my booking page, you see the class tab. That too is free. It tells you what our book we're reading. Our last book was Women on Wall Street, but we've done Michael Dell's biography, Phil Knight's Shoe Dog biography. I try and pick something, Michael Dell's biography. I like biographies of particular Charles Schwab, Ricketts, something that is kind of business oriented. It might have some things that would be pertinent to our exam. Okay, so I think we are ready now to see what we got going on in comments, Brian. All right, boom, boom, boom. You can ask any question you want. Ask anything. So we don't listen. I'm pretty blessed. And so, work is the last refuge for people who don't have anything better to do. Brian and I both have much better things to do. So I don't run separate Q&As twice a week, one for FINRA, one for NASA. Way too much work. If you want free access to Brian and I, Tuesday night, 5 p.m. Arizona time, any exam you want to ask about is open to you. And that's my response to that. You can ask any question about any FINRA or NASA exam. Brian and I, by the way, are, I'm going to toot our own horn, Brian, our own horn here. I don't think any other two people that would be on a screen doing what we're doing have more years of experience, decades. It have had helped tens of thousands of test takers make their mark.
That we have.
So you're in the right place to get your questions asked. All right. Now, I do say, Brian, sometimes I say we're able and willing to answer your questions. Sometimes we're able, not willing. Sometimes we're willing, not able. Usually I think we can be helpful. 65. Diego was talking to somebody with 65s, and Brian and I take a little bit of heat because people are incredulous when Brian and I say, and I think Brian, maybe he's changed his mind, but we both think that is the hardest exam.
Yeah.
For people who come to it with no kind of a background, because if you come that as a tabula rasa, it's a blank slate. Those NASA exams, 65, because of the investment component, doesn't have the narrative thread like the 7. The 7 kind of makes sense. Can you find a customer? Function 1. Can you, open an account? Function 2. Can you make an investment recommendation? Function 3. What happens after the trade? Well, that 65 is, it's all over the place. Brian and I did a great video series, Diego, on the 65. We have a podcast we did. Check that out. I will link to that in the video description. I get this question all the time, Brian. People say, where should I start? I said, you should start with the video playlist that says start here. And that is the playlist that I have at the front of the 65. We have 4 playlists for the 65. That podcast is usually that first playlist. How many episodes of that, Brian? I think we have 3 or 4 or 5 episodes in that series.
I think it's at least 5.
Yeah, at least 5. The first one's really important. I think, is that the one we called Who Takes the 65 and Why?
Exactly. So, just what you're talking about.
Yeah. We got another 65. Lots of 65s in the house. Just join the Facebook group, completely open. Thank you so much. Our Facebook group, we're coming up on 3,000 members. It's completely open. I don't make you do any kind of answer questions to, come join us, because I figure if you are spamming, I'm just going to give you a warning and I'm going to delete you. So I don't worry too much about gatekeeping on that kind of thing. I do get every once in a while, Brian, somebody who posts, and if there's a filter and it'll come in, and then I'm looking at it and I'm like, is this a real thing or not? So far, I haven't had anybody call me say, hey, what the heck? By the way, we don't solicit, Brian and I, in the Facebook group and the Reddits, we don't solicit tutoring. So we're available, but the other thing is that we don't have people hiding out cloaked, trying to, work people to come join tutoring. Listen, I'm all about added value, whether it's a supplement or tutoring, whatever it is, but that's really not the form. Facebook and our Reddits are not for that. Again, that's just so you can join a tribe. And it's nice when you're in a tribe because there's other people who are sympathetic. Hey, Geek and Guru, taking the Series 7 Thursday. Woohoo! Any last minute curveballs I should know about? No. I get this all the time about butterflies. And I think butterflies, Brian, are in the answer set is a wrong answer, a distractor. Distractors are the technical name for a wrong answer. You might see a caller, but you don't need to know it's a caller. If you can, there's two things, Ashley. If you can track money in and out of an account, and you can, contract specifications, you'll be in pretty good shape. And you don't need to know that's a caller. But it's called a caller because what we're doing is selling a call to fund the purchase of the put. We're trying to lower the out-of-pocket cost of the insurance. And a cashless caller where I bring in more for the call that are the same as the calls I do for the put. Please note, that's why it's called a caller, because I have an obligation to sell at the call. I have a choice to sell at the put. So that's why it's called a caller. If you put into this channel search bar caller, I have a beautiful video I made, and it has a caller like this, Brian, and it's Apple in the middle, and then the calls here on the caller, and then the puts over here. I love my I'm not as literate as a lot of people making thumbnails, but it's one of my favorite thumbnails. Usually the thumbnails I like, people don't really care for. I have one on bearish transactions on Series 7, Ashley. I got this bear, and he's awesome looking. I had to change it because nobody would click on it. Maybe they were afraid of the bear. I don't know. Brian, what about you? You think butterflies?
I was thinking, I have not heard anything nefarious showing up on the 7 in quite some time.
Yeah. It is what it is. Don't make it harder. Don't make it harder than it is. 66 taker, Brian. I want to do your 66 class. When should I start going to class? Well, his classes are videos, so you can go anytime you want, right, Brian?
Yeah, exactly.
Are you doing a live class somewhere that they should know about?
I'm done doing live classes.
All right, perfect. Okay. I do a class once a quarter on the 66 for Kaplan. And I think my 66 class, it's a collaboration with Guru Exam Prep LLC, which is me and Kaplan. And that's in March. And that is a live class.
To answer his question, typically it's the 3-pillar process: textbook and practice questions. Then, because of that content in that textbook, you want to go through my class to consolidate and concentrate.
Yeah, I just think that would be, as we said, a bridge, right? So when you're done, that's when you should start doing Brian.
Is that what you said, Brian? That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think you don't want to. I wouldn't be using Brian as a paid supplement along the way with my paid study materials. This would be my recommendation on. I'll see what Brian. I would, when I recommend Brian's product, which I do a lot of, I always say get done with your primary study materials, whether it's Bass, Perfect, or Kaplan, or STC, or Doberman. When you're done with those materials and you've done your first practice exam, then buy Brian's supplement.
That's right.
And you might want to buy the bus supplement, maybe before the first practice test, but I would use it after you've gone through your primary study materials, because what that'll help is, as I kind of said, I think Brian's added value is that distillation that he's good at. I get this all the time too, Brian, when people say, well, this was in my book and Brian never talked about it. I go, exactly.
Yeah.
That's a hint. So. All right, victorious test taker in the house. Acolyte, thank you so much. Alumni are always welcome here. It's always great to have somebody who's passed these tests show up and buck up other people's spirits. One thing I don't like that we are not doing the traditional model. Brian just said he's not doing live classes. A lot of companies are not either. A lot of companies are now saying, Brian, go get your SIE on your own, then come to circle back.
That's right.
And then your people are, in the old days, Brian and I could do classes on a campus. There'd be 25, 30 people as a cohort. And what was great about that is that if somebody had a bad day, somebody could take them lunch or buy them an adult beverage after and buck them up. But it's harder to do in the way it's being done nowadays. So that's the other reason I'm such a believer in social media and joining a test taking tribe, whether it's Facebook or Reddit, or joining us every Tuesday, just to kind of check in. I mean, not only do we want to help you with content, but hopefully we can provide you with some, maybe a little fun and fellowship. FINRA NASAA isn't associated with fun, but we can do our best. We can do our best. Hypothecation, I certainly can. I was just telling Brian that I lost the bezel on my Rolex Blueface Submariner, and $2,200 to replace that bezel. But Luciano, if I went into the pawn shop and said, I'd like to hypothecate my Rolex. Now, all that means is the fancy word is I want to pledge it as collateral for a loan. Right? So that's what the word hypothecation means. Hypothecation means pledging collateral as a loan. That means the securities, my Rolex is going to be in street name, or in securities means the name of the broker dealer. So if I don't fulfill my responsibilities, they can sell me out. I think of it, Luciano, as if I get pulled over, the cop says, you have the pink slip. I say, no, I do not have the pink slip. I've hypothecated the car to the bank. The bank has the pink slip, right? That's the hypothecation. I was reading, Brian, that the car loan market, where they're hypothecating cars for loans, is bigger than the credit card market, and it's just behind the mortgage market. Crazy, right? So that's what hypothecation means, pledging securities as collateral for a loan. That's mandatory that you sign that and that you understand your securities are in street name, the name of the broker dealer. And if you don't fulfill your responsibilities, we're going to sell you out. You don't have here the credit agreement, but the credit agreement is also mandatory. And that tells you that you understand that you're borrowing money from the broker dealer and you're paying interest based on broker call. That's what banks charge brokerage firms for money. Those two documents are mandatory, very testable on Series 7. The loan consent form, as I say, Luciano, I see that you have this stock, this 1,000 shares of SeaWorld in your account, or whatever the stock is. Would you sign the loan consent form? Oh, I see you're taking Series 10. The loan consent form allows us to lend your securities to our other customers. The test question there is that that's optional. You say, well, Dean, I don't think it's in my best interest to help people short securities I'm long. I said, it's not. That's why it's optional. I'd be willing to bet you that Larry Ellison has not given Morgan Stanley permission to lend his Oracle stock to people who wish to establish short sales. Now, in your 10, Luciano, it's a real slog, and the margin won't kill you on the 10. The 10 is a real slog in general. But focus on the documentation, focus on minimum maintenance, 25 long, 30% short. Know the house requirement can be more than that. House requirements can always be more stringent, just can't be more lenient. I think that's one of the challenges on the 10 and 24 is because you might have the house requirements so embedded in your brain housing group that you don't recognize that, that's not how the world works in terms of testing. Make sure you know market value maintenance, how far down the stock could go before you'd be at maintenance, debit by 0.75. And know on a short account that would be credit 1.3. By the way, that's good not only for 10, that's good for 24. That's also good for your Series 7 folks as well. Brian, your thoughts on this question on the Series 10?
Absolutely. Yeah. For Series 10, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Dean, they can get into the hypothecation rules.
Yeah.
The 40% rule like the Series 24 does.
But
I would. Generally, in the real world, again, correct me if I'm wrong. In the real world, everyone simply talks about one document.
Yeah, sign here, and here. Yeah, that's right. That's right. And the real world, we say, Brian, sign here and here.
A combination of 7.
Yeah, well, Luciano, I would just add, and 10, remember, means you're a sales supervisor, so that you don't need to know the depth of a 24. But I would say that Brian is correct to remember we can only use big picture now. This is just 10. You can't use customer securities for anything other than benefiting customers.
That's right.
Right. So one concept in this is that one reason we love margin accounts is because we're going to rehypothecate your securities to the bank. I'm going to say, Mr. Banker, here's Luciano's securities. Please note I'm using your securities to finance your loan. That's called your debit balance, which you're the brokerage firm. That rehypothecation is called Reg U. It's 140%. But the bigger picture is you can't get cross liens. That means you can't actually use the securities to get more than one loan, a loan for the customer, a loan for the broker dealer. You can't use customer securities for broker dealer benefits. So there's some prohibited practices as it relates to margin in general. But at the branch manager level, 9, 10 level, I don't think you need to have as a big a handle on margin as you maybe perhaps on 24. And I would tell you that if you tell me you missed your mark on your 10, I don't think it's going to be margin. I think it's going to be sales supervision. It's going to be, something like that. Any other comments here, Brian, before we move on from this one? Yeah, I think that was a good one. And thanks for joining us. I'm one of those few guys. I help people with all exams from, SIE all the way to series 24s, 27s, 28s, 57s, 79s. Okay. Tragic Plazy. Wow. That's an interesting stage name. Hi, Dean, series 7. I'm averaging 70 on past perfect final exams. That's wonderful. The variance is in your favor. So that's good. So you can add, I would think, a few points to that. Took the free Achievable exam, got 63. Well, here we go again. I mean, I hate to be the Achievable naysayer. But, people say, gee, Steen, what's your beef with Achievable? Okay, well, here's my beef with Achievable. It's just this variance that they have between practice test scores and actual exams. Yeah, that's exactly so what I would say to you, Tragic Plays, is that score you got on past perfect is more reliable and a better indicator of how you're going to do on the exam. One of the reasons I like Brian's practice test, he only has one of them, but it has very strong correlation to the actual exam. And this variance is not good, positive or negative, that Achievable has in their practice test. And I think what might have happened, they lost Brandon Rith, who was their content person, and I'm not sure who their subject matter expert content person is now. Taylor certainly doesn't have the expertise to be doing that. But I think they took enough heat from guys like me calling them out that now I think they may have gone the other way. So their questions, so that would be it. So I would put Achievable away or just disregard those practice test scores and just use that for practice. And then I would rely more upon my past perfect scores as an indicator where you're at. Now, remember, you can go to my channel. And my channel, I have Series 7 playlists from all the vendors, including Brian. You can watch Brian's test, keep me do it, and hit pause. Come with your answer, play, watch me. And then Brian, I've had students, who would have thunk it? Lauren was the first one who gave me permission. I've had people give me permission to do it with them in a shared screen practice test and put it on the channel so you can watch me and somebody else do it together and talk about it. I got Brian, I got Kaplan, I got Notman Marks on there. I got STC on there. Past Perfect didn't give me permission because they know I don't really care for them, and it's okay. They don't care for me either. And I doubt Achievable would give me permission to do that. Your exam is Friday and you work full time. So maybe do one more Past Perfect tomorrow. And then I would take Thursday off and I would try not to let that 63 get in your head. The most important thing from here to Friday is being confident in the execution of your study plan. Be confident in yourself. And most importantly, this is really important, Past Perfect and Achievable. Be confident in your answers on Friday. Don't be changing answers. Don't be kissing up to the exam. Brian, your thoughts on this?
On test taking? No, I've got all kinds of thoughts.
Well, yeah, he's Friday.
Yeah,
so
but the disparity, you got to go to Dean's website, to the YouTube channel, and look at somebody else's practice final, my practice final, Kaplan's practice final. I think that 63 is an outlier. Really
I do too. I do too. Best advice for somebody got a 60 on the 66. Should I reread Kaplan, more practice question videos? Yeah, I think I would reinitiate my study plan. And that would mean everything I did previously. But you got to ask, what did you not do on the previous attempt that you're going to do on this attempt? Right? Because 60 borders on knowledge deficit.
That's right.
It means you need to lay some more base. Since you need to lay more base, yes, I would read the book cover to cover. After I've read the book cover to cover, I would do my read the section. I'd either watch a video to put a dent in the reading or do the reading and watch a video to consolidate that reading, then do the practice questions on that unit. If you can get a 75%, move on to the next unit, rinse and repeat. And then Brian's recommendation is excellent on this. Don't just do unit 1, 2, 3. You got to keep bringing up the caboose. So after you do unit 2, you get a 75, then you do a combined quiz, unit 1, unit 2, you do unit 3, 75. And by the time you get through that, you should almost have a practice quiz that is almost as large as a practice test. And that's when you transition to the practice test. Any thoughts on that, Brian?
No, that's exactly right. Yeah, make sure you're looking at the video course, Dean's or mine, to consolidate that Series 66. The one thing that Dean and I think are very, very good at is explaining that legalese in a way in which people can understand it.
Yeah.
And once you understand it, you can retain it better.
Yeah.
You need to see it, you need to read it, and you need to use it. That's what retention is all about. So yes, go through all three of those things.
Yep, all of the above.
Yep.
I like this one. This is one of the things on 65 that's challenging because there's a lot of stuff on it. If you tell me you missed your 65 because of the bid and the ask, I would say no. What I would know, Evan, is this is a cost of trading that must be overcome as an investment advisor rep, because our customer is going to pay the high price, the asking price, and our customer is going to receive the low price, the bid price, right? So Brian has a bid and ask, very much like a test question here. I might say on your test, what would your customer expect to pay for this stock? And you would have to come up with 32.30. I might ask you on the test, what might your customer receive if he sells? You'd say 32.15, right? It's from the dealer or market maker's perspective. The one I use, the analogy I use, Brian, is a car dealer, right? If I go into a car dealer and I say, how much for Lincoln Navigator? He goes, $90,000. I go, great, I got one. Where's my $90,000? He goes, well, no, Dean, I'm sorry, man. I thought you wanted to turn money into a Navigator. I gave you my offer price. You want to trade in the Navigator, 50 grand. I go, oh my God, what's that called? He said, Dean, that's called the spread. The difference between I buy cars at and I sell cars at. Brian, I was on my way to the cigar lounge on a Saturday, and my tire warning came in. I pulled into the Hyundai dealership to, see if they could check it real quick for me. And they said, Dean, it'll take about an hour. So I'm in their lounge. Their lounge is pretty nice coffee. And you could tell this is the sales manager who came in. He said, can I make you a cup of espresso? I go, oh, yeah, I appreciate the hospitality.
Here it comes.
Yeah, that's right. He said, have you seen any of the new Hyundais yet? I said, no. I said, listen, I appreciate the hospitality, but the idea that I'm going to get $1,000 car payment or hand you, $60,000 in cash, either which I'm capable of doing. I have other things I'd like to be doing, buying cigars, buying whiskey. So I'm not a good prospect, but thank you very much. Evan, there, I would be paying the asking price for the new Santa Fe, right? The high price. And when I trade in my Santa Fe, I get the low price, the bid and the ask, right?
And Dean, I think you understand, throughout the years when we were teaching people this, they always get this backwards.
Yeah, it's because it's
something
inside
in their brain says that, the customer must be buying at the lower price.
No. Customer always pay high and receive the low. That's called the securities industry. I'm joking, but that's how we make our living, on the spread, right? On the spread. By the way, we had somebody taking a series 10 or 24. Even at that level, people, Brian, get confused about that.
That's right.
All right. I was wondering if I was going to be able to light up a victory cigar. Thank God. I thought we might go the whole night. We're doing here My Father, the Judge, is our victory cigar tonight. And boom. And very special, Jonathan. Very special. Well, I'm got to get rid of Brian here, so this bottle can be displayed. There we go. Look at that. That is a Pappy Van Winkle. That's a 15-year program.
Goodness gracious.
So we're going to pour a little bit of that. Let me get Brian back up here. Boom. Let me pour my little. I'm not going to pour much because it's really expensive.
The hat trick is worthy of grand value.
I think so. Get the scarlet. Oh, I got to take the footband off it.
That is some sort of building, let me tell you.
Ooh. Okay, let's read the rest of this. 66 on December 30th, 4 weeks previous. All right, the hat trick indeed. I don't see an SIE there, but obviously he had to do that too. So yeah. Jonathan, kudos. Thanks for coming back, circling back. Let us know how you did. Yeah, I like that. I love full-bodied cigar, Dan. This is a My Father, which is pretty full-bodied. The Garcia family, I got into it, Dan, with a guy at the cigar lounge about boutique cigars. And I said, there's a problem with a boutique cigar, and here's my problem with it. The Garcia family has been making cigars for like 3-4 generations. That's La Roma de Cuba. That's my father is smoking now. And this boutique guy said he learned how to roll cigars when he was in a rock and roll band traveling the country. And I think, okay, the Garcia family or a former roadie. So I like Full Body. I will try it. Oily and Replete. Dan, you're speaking to the choir. That sounds like a cigar I would really like. I will certainly, as soon as I'm done, have sick my brother on it. He's the guy who goes out on the internet and finds all this stuff. I love Oily Replete with Favor. Fantastic. And Dan, thanks for joining us from LinkedIn. We broadcast to YouTube. We broadcast to Facebook, and our primary platform is YouTube, but it always warms my heart when I see somebody from LinkedIn. Doing the 66 from Simi Valley, California. All right. Woo! Ashlyn, I like that. 66 people after taking it. Well, start making money. Is that too simple? Am I missing something?
Not passing it.
Oh, not passing. Any
I
recommendation?
guess. That's what I'm assuming.
I would say once you're registered, welcome to the securities industry.
Yay!
If you're poor and deserve to be rich, our industry is for you. So I would think you have completed your testing journey. Maybe I apologize if this is Brian is correct and you're saying recommendations after taking you didn't pass. If you passed, you've concluded, for most people, you've concluded your test taking journey, right? The hat trick, SIE 6766. If you missed it, I think we gave some recommendations, but I have a whole podcast episode. You failed, is it over? Spoiler alert, the answer is no. I'll link to it in the video description. Has my 5 recommendations about how to proceed. The first is to do an intellectual inventory based on the test specifications provided by NASA to see, where you went awry, right? So that would be my first recommendation. Then, then there's more to it, plus and minus and zero, but I'll leave it to you to watch that. I'm all about construction, Dan. I've had cigars that I think taste yummy, but then they unravel on me. The Camacho. I almost got talked into smoking another Camacho. And the guy who was smoking while he almost had me talked into smoking that, Dan, it unraveled on him. I said, never again will I smoke that cigar. So, and you can see this. My fathers always have a great draw. I don't know if you can see the draw. But you don't have to work. I don't like working on smoking a cigar. When I got to work, I'm going to start over. Wow, what a 2002. Oh, rules and regs. Okay, that was somebody else. Jinja 2012. That's crazy. Really tested fundamentals definitions. Yeah, I believe that. By the way, if I had, so just as a ancillary to that, if somebody told me I had to take a test very quickly and I didn't have any time to study, this is huge. Make sure you read the glossary. The glossary is target rich, right? So when he says definitions are huge, I would add to that, where do you find the definitions? In the glossary. So you might want to check out that glossary. Some of them are high risk than others. Now, also, I would recommend check out Brian's video he did for us, definitions of persons or registrations in persons.
Both definitions and
like
registrations.
150,000 views on that crazy thing, Brian. That's been very, very helpful. And so check that out as well. I think that would be a good thing to do. For me, it was the first 4 or 5 chapters of STC that were heavily tested. Yeah, I like that, Jonathan, too, because people need to know every draw is different. And so, don't be studying for your last draw if you're retaking, and don't put too much weight into what else somebody had on their draw. You want to be able to take down any draw. Now, we're all wishing for you to get what we call the dream draw. Everything you studied shows up. But you should be able to take down any draw, including a face of death draw. 65 this morning. All right, Spiky. Woohoo! Dan, the problem with smoking and drinking good stuff is then it makes it harder to do other stuff. I'm like, oh, no, I can't drink that. I can't smoke that. Life is too short. Including the Mighty 90. I love my Mighty 90. I did the 60 minutes, your exams in 60 minutes, Spiky, and that was very, very popular. And when I started the channel, people told me nobody would watch 60-minute videos. Obviously, that's not true, but, I did play and record, and we have videos of 30 seconds. We have videos of 4 hours. And then people ask me, redo the series 60 in 60-minute series. Well, I didn't want to do part 2. So I then made the Mighty 90s. And a lot of people think they're the same videos. They're not. That's obviously you haven't watched them both because they're different. I wouldn't recommend watching them both because they're designed to be the night before, morning of, to get you in the flow. They've been so successful, Spiky, that I have imitators, copycats. I guess it's a form of flattery. And I like that Ken has rebranded his, what he used to call his quick and dirty, into the power hour, which is basically, copying my format of 60-minute videos for the night before, morning of. You are welcome. I think always saying thank you to Jonathan. I am testing for the SEI third attempt. Oh my goodness. The third attempt is always stressful because, as we know, is that your house? Did somebody?
Yes.
I was going to say, can't be me. I'm off grid. I'm an hour from civilization. Anyways, what I was going to say is that that third time, remember, you have that 180 day wait period. So, you got to deal with it. I would like to know, Marsha, what your scores were. I'd like to know, did you find some commonality of why you think you missed your mark? Brian and I believe, let's assume that you had a almost passing score. We believe at some point this is not a knowledge deficit problem. It could be test anxiety or test taking skills, perhaps. And so give us some more data on that. And we can see if maybe we can be a little more helpful than just saying, oh, I hope you get it this time. But we do need to make sure you get it, right? The actual test will harder than I see in practice. Well, I like that. We want you to be pleasantly surprised. Coworkers said it would be easier for everybody's testing journey is different. So be careful of relying on other people's testing journey. But that is usually true, particularly if you're using past perfect. Kaplan's designed to be a little harder. Now, the one time where people don't score very high and don't pass, very rarely, it's an anomaly. But when they're scoring very high on a test prep vendor, any test prep vendor, and they don't pass, it's usually because they memorize questions and answers rather than understood the concepts. So I would be more comfortable with somebody getting mid-70, but actually is understanding things, than somebody who's getting a 85 and they, B, D. Oh, I know it's A, B. That's not helpful. Brian, your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. The Series 65 especially. For as long as we've been doing this, the test prep vendors, myself included, don't really accurately duplicate the way the questions and, more importantly, the answer choices are worded. They are different. Yeah. Now, from my personal experience, I think the questions on the 65 tend to be more straightforward. It's the answer choices that tend to be a bit more ambiguous, and that's what makes it a challenge.
I got to tell you, on 65 and 66, and even all NASA exams, I had one today, Brian, we were looking at it. It was a whole paragraph. And so not only read the full question, and this one I said, you know what? Before I even read the question, I'm going to read the answer set. Right? Read that answer set and see from the answer set. And we read A, and A couldn't be right in any universe. It was just, there's no question stem that would make this a correct answer. There were two answers that were exact opposites. And I said, before we read the question, I said, we know it's one of these two. Either a small cap stock is a suitable recommendation, or choice C was small cap is not a suitable recommendation. So before we read the question, we know it's one of those two. So now we're more informed when we're reading because we know we're being asked about, is a small cap a recommendation, right? This is diagnosing that question before you jump in to understand what you're being asked and what answers are being offered to you. How many times have we had to tell people you're not ready for tutoring because right now you don't know what you're being asked and you don't know what answers are being offered to you? We can toss out D, no brain cells necessary. I call this the principal mutual exclusion as a test taking skill. You can't leave B and C in the same universe because they just don't exist. I always use Socrates as a dog, Socrates as a philosopher. He's either a dog or a philosopher. He can't be both, right? Anyways, we then read it and it said, as a fiduciary, they have a small portion of the portfolio in small caps. That's okay. Keyword, small portion, different asset. I wouldn't call it different asset class, but different kind of a thing. So there's an example of that. All right, let's see. Now we got another question here. Ashley, can you explain the long-term bond prices are more volatile than short-term? It's because it gets extrapolated, Ashley. I'll give this to Brian in a sec. I think of a traffic jam, right? I always get so ticked off because I know there's some looky glue that's barely stepping on his brakes. But by the time that gets extrapolated to me and I'm at the back end of that traffic jam, I'm the one at most at risk because I'm going 80 miles an hour, slamming on the brakes, 80 miles an hour. What the Fed controls is short-term interest rates. Test question. Well, in 66, I wouldn't worry too much about this. But the short-term interest rates are the ones that the Fed controls, and they change those more often than long-term rates, right? So just be careful on the question. Now, in your 66 and constructing a bond portfolio, you should understand that because remember, if interest rates go up, the long-term bond price is going down. Now, the way that gets tested on 65 and 66, Ashley, is with a concept called duration. This should be an aim and shoot point and click question because you should be able to go there long and low. The bond with the longest maturity and the lowest coupon has the highest volatility. The follow-on question with that is, how can you avoid that? One way you can do that is by creating, test question, a laddered bond portfolio where you have some short-term, intermediate term, and long-term bonds. So you always have bonds coming due that you can reinvest at today's rate. Second test question, you'd be immune from this if you were doing a bullet bond portfolio. In other words, like you have a kid, they just got born, I buy you 18-year bonds, 17-year bonds, 16-year bonds. All these bonds are coming due at one time. Target, right? That target date. There, we're not selling the bonds. So if you call me and say, Dean, I'm looking at my statement and interest rates have gone up and my bonds have gone down, I go, what do we care? Because we're holding the bonds to maturity. So another way you can be immune from interest rate risk is to not participate in the secondary market. I see, Brian, you got your board. What you want to add to that?
Yeah, the first comment you absolutely made. This is a Series 7 question.
Yeah,
and it gets people all the time because it appears that they're asking about similar things, but they're not. They're asking about two different things. One of them being prices of bonds in the secondary market, and the other one is when are interest rates set? And Dean just said the Federal Open Market Committee changes the discount rate, right? What is it? Every 13 weeks or whatever they meet. So short-term interest rates change most often. When you compare that to bond prices, right, in the secondary market, the ones that change most often and the greatest are bond prices on long-term bonds. So they're really asking two completely different things. And secondly, this is a Series 7 question. You're not going to have to deal with this.
Yeah, and maybe 65. You'll get one, maybe two. The other thing I would add to that, Brian, is
not when you compare these two.
Yeah, I like this, Ashley. I don't know how much you follow the markets, but Silicon Valley Bank thought they were being very conservative as a bank by taking the deposits and buying long-term treasury bonds. What did we just tell you? Long-term treasury bonds are the most volatile. The Fed start raising short-term interest rates to dent demand because inflation was going, 8, 9% at the time. As they started raising those short-term rates, the bond portfolio of Silicon Valley Bank in the secondary market, people were saying, well, wait a minute, I got a 20-year treasury paying me 5, and I get a CD paying 7. And that wouldn't have been a problem, except then people knew their bond portfolio had a loss and people started asking for their money. They would start withdrawing. We never thought we could have kind of a run on a bank, but actually the run was quicker because it's electronic, right? And so what appeared to be a very conservative strategy, buying long-term treasury bonds, ended up, taking that bank under, right? If they had actually had a diversified bond portfolio with short-term, intermediate, and long-term bonds, they would have bonds coming due that they could use to give their depositors back the money, right? So there's an example of volatility. So remember, in the treasury bonds I just gave you, you don't have credit risk. They didn't blow up because of credit risk. They blew up because of interest rate risk, right? That too is testable, more on 7, more on 65. All right, let's see. I'm doing the 66. We just did that one. Advice for going from the SIE to the 66 before 7. I don't like it. I hear about this happening more and more, Grant. I don't like it. I mean, it's supposed to be SIE 766. I hate to say it, Grant, but when I hear this, I think it's sponsoring firms being cheap. That what they want you to do is take the SIE. I want to know if you're being paid to study. My guess is somebody said, Grant, we will sponsor you for the 7, but come back when you got 2 of the 3 done. You got your SIE on your own because that doesn't require sponsorship, 66, and come back with you to the 7. So I think it's firms not wanting Grant to take risk on you on those 2 exams and maybe not wanting to pay you. That's my own, but I got to tell you, I'm an old grump. So in my world, I would pay you. Not everybody gets paid to take their tests. But in that world, we take an SIE, a 7, a 66. Hey, but it is what it is. If this is what you got to do to get in the business, well, then you got to do it. What are your thoughts on that, Brian?
Absolutely. SIE 766. The 7
is going to that the companies are making them doing that or thinking more about their own interests.
You know what? I never thought about it that deeply, but now that you've mentioned it, it sounds right.
Yeah.
But I don't care why they're recommending it. I just wouldn't do it.
There you go. It'd be interesting what the pushback would be.
But it sounds right. Your logic sounds right, Dean.
Really if you said, "Hey, I've been told that that's not the right order," and they might say, "Hey, I don't care what you've been told. That's the way we do it here." As someone who struggles with double negatives, any advice on how to read or pick apart the question? Well, it's more, I guess, good news first. It's more of a test prep vendor thing than it is a NASA thing. Now, I would tell you that NASA, none of them are investment professionals. Most of them are attorneys. And so, it's in that legalese, but they're not, I think a double negative would be all the following are true except. They're not going to say like all the following are not true except, right? So I think that's more a test prep vendor. But double negatives, as I said, what I would do is just make sure RTFQ, you read the full question. RTFA, you read the full answer set. Sometimes that double negative will help you if you read the answer set. What I like to do sometimes is just read without the question, just read each statement and put a T or an F next to it.
That's right.
T meaning I'm reading a true statement. F meaning it's a false statement. Question mark means I'm not sure. And I like to do that on my scratch paper. A, B, C, D. I read each one. Now, maybe I get 2 T's and a question mark and another T. Then it kind of tells me that I'm looking at the except format. If I get 3 F's, then I'm looking at which of the following is true kind of format. So again, spending your time, very rarely do people run out of time on a NASA exam. So take your time to make sure before you jump into the question that you're comfortable with what you are being asked, even if it has a double negative, what answers are being offered to you, and I would go from there. Your thoughts, Brian?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The test prep vendors love doing that stuff. Where it may get caught up is non-exempt, exempt,
yeah.
That kind of stuff. And I think I fixed that on my video course.
Yeah, if you're studying, the other thing I would tell you, we just had somebody that I was working with, and I said, listen, if they're going to spend 3/4 of a page explaining the question to you, that's on them. And they did have a double negative kind of thing. I go, this is ridiculous. So good news, won't be so bad.
2 negatives equals a positive, right?
There you go. Hi, Dean. Taking the 65 on February 2nd. Took the first of many simulations and got the 80. That's fantastic.
Wow.
I'm out 28 questions in the QBanks. Where do I go from here? Rinse and repeat, my friend. I would try and exhaust that QBank. You're so close. Why not? And try not to burn yourself out. I mean, I can tell you're doing the work with scores like that. The number of performance opportunities, that's what I call practice questions. 2,800 performance opportunities with an 80. I think you're not at risk, and I would just keep doing what you're doing. Do avoid burnout is real. So make sure you don't wear yourself out before you get to February 2nd. So I would give yourself permission to at least take 1 day a week and do nothing. Just let your brain refresh, reset with a score like that, whether it's a Sunday or a Friday. But yeah, I don't like the word spam, but hey, spam is one man's spam is another's man's steak, right? So I like it. Brian, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking 13 days left and you're already scoring an 80%.
Move your date up, perhaps.
Yeah, move it up. Right? Also, use a performance tracker. I don't know what textbook you're using. Mm-hmm. Find the weak areas, work on those. Those performance trackers are
Would you put this test taker, Brian? I'm going to put him in the test taker category and see if you agree with the category he belongs in. Wouldn't we love to have more test takers with this champagne problem?
Exactly.
Champagne problems aren't real problems. So, Brian, I wish that everybody we're talking to would say, Dean, I've done 2,800 questions. I'm getting 80s. Where do I go from here? Go test. Yeah, go test. Uh-oh. And then we get the opposite.
They're right. Isn't that interesting? Right next to each other. Yeah.
Back to back on achievable still pass. Well, there you go. That happens. It happens because the variance is in your favor, but it's not somewhere we would want you to be. I wouldn't want you to reschedule, but ideally we would not want you to get 55. We would like you to be scoring mid 70s. So cool. But hey, a pass is a pass. We'll take it any way we can.
Dean, may we, since this is a couple of times achievables come up.
Yeah.
Might you and I both agree that achievable probably shouldn't be used as your primary vendor? It should.
I think on the SIE, I would say this. On the SIE, I don't think it matters. I don't think you're at risk using achievable as a primary study tool on the SIE. But then again, you could pass the SIE. I have enough content on my channel to pass the SIE, and many people just use my channel to do so. I do agree with you, Brian, beyond that. I don't think it should be a paid study material. If you're going to use it as your primary, then it's really important you supplement. That you are supplementing with my YouTube channel or Brian's Test Geek materials or a Kaplan QBank. So beyond the SIE, I do think that you're taking a chance to use achievable as your primary. In fact, even people who are achievable fans who sometimes take me to task for my comments about achievable, I know the guys very well. I would like to know, I'm going to put up a bet over or under. People say, oh, they're going to litigate against Dean for saying these things. I go, hey, truth is an absolute defense. And I love to litigate. I'm a litigious person. Bring it on. I'm more likely to be the one who institutes litigation than the one who receives it. But that being said, even the people who love achievable recommend a supplement. They say you should get achievable beyond the SIE and get a Kaplan QBank, right? Why not? It's a safety measure. Past the 66. Woo! This is one of the greatest cigars, Brian. I know you don't smoke as much as you used to, but next time I come to Vegas, I'm going to bring a couple. Ooh. Couldn't thank you guys enough. Well, we always are very gratified when people use our content to make their mark. And we love the gratification of knowing you're entering into the securities industry. Our industry is a great industry. I posted a picture, Brian, of us at the bar there at William B's doing you were doing, I think, the bourbon martini or old fashioned, Manhattan martini. And I'm doing a flight on Van Winkle. And the post I made, Brian, was the freedom that the securities industry can provide to you, your family, by helping others achieve their financial freedom. What a great place to be. So very gratifying. You're more than welcome. We love it. We love helping people make these marks because, these tests are designed to be a barrier to entry. They're to keep people out of the securities industry. Why? Because we want to be the few and the proud, not the many and the humble. Right? So I tell this story all the time, Brian, that I had a client who I made a $24,000 commission on. He invested $300,000 in this winery. He said, Dean, I could refer other people to you. His name is Russell. I said, Russell, that's a great idea. I handed him the books for the SIE, the 766. He goes, what's this? I said, well, you need to go take these tests, Russell. Once you pass all these exams, I'll give you half. You refer somebody to me and they invest, and I make $24,000. I'll give you 12. That'll be your payout. He goes, I don't want to do that. I said, I didn't think so. So all I can say then is thank you very much. You can access Brian Lee's practice test. Ashley, be very careful. Listen carefully to what I'm about to say. You can buy Brian's practice test a la carte as a PDF with the answer key and rationale. It's a little over $20 and you get the discount. But we get people all the time who do that, Ashley, and then they call me or Brian and say, all I got was a practice test. I said, well, yeah, we told you. It's a PDF. If you want, you can buy his whole PDF that includes his class notes. I think that's like $50, or buy his whole course for $100. And then Ashley, you can get it for free on the channel you'll see I label it Test Geek. It's got Brian's logo there. And there's a couple versions. There's a version where it's just me. And there's a version I use in Brian's content and tutoring. And when I get permission for somebody, sometimes I say, well, what shared screen test do you want to do? You want to do a Kaplan? You want to do a Test Geek? And I've had people do the Test Geek, and there's ones where you can watch me and a student do Brian's Test Geek practice exam. I'm hoping Brian doesn't watch it because every once in a while I say something derogatory about Brian's question. I go, oh, that's Brian. So take it up with Brian. That's not my favorite question either, but it is what it is. I say it's like the
Absolutely.
real exam. Every once on the real exam, you get a question, you go, what the heck?
You can find my PDFs on my website.
Oh, there you go. So you could just go to the testgeekexamprep.com. Is that what it is?
Testgeekexamprep.com. That's my website. That's where all the a la carte PDFs are. Yeah.
Passes the SIE with approximately 1 year. That's fantastic, Stevie.
Wow. The hat trick.
So I love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. So you are welcome, my friend. You are welcome, my friend. You're going to do well, I think, in our industry. You know, when we get people from the military or police or people like that, they do pretty well in our business because they're used to being dedicated, disciplined, and organized. And actually, those are the skill sets are sometimes more important in our business than how high you passed the score on the test or where you went to college or any other stuff. I have one question on the bid and ask. That's about right, Spiky. I don't think it's a big deal. And that's what's so challenging on the 65 is there's so many rabbit holes you could go down for like a point or two. And I put videos in there and then I take them out. I'm like, oh my goodness. Today I had a guy who wanted to talk about options as it relates to a 65. And I thought, you know, it's not a good investment. And prep for the 6 is still not required in your state. Well, you're one of the few states it's not. Right. Am I wasting my time? Well, I don't think so. I mean, it's better to have it. It's better to have it, not need it, than need it and not have it. And if you have one client who moves to another state, you're going to need it. So, you know, I would say take it. What do you think, Brian?
I was just going to say, what if you have a client in a neighboring state?
Yeah, right? yeah. So
you live on the East Coast, you're within 100 miles of 5 different states. So
yeah,
take the 63.
Could I explain the difference between breakpoints and rights of accumulation? I sure can. So a breakpoint is a quantity discount. I started out as a retail broker and ended up as an institutional broker. But when I was a retail broker, I sold a lot of the Franklin funds. And I don't know if it's still true, but Franklin had a breakpoint. $100,000 or more, you pay 3% instead of 4%. Right? So 3% is obviously better. So, you know, if you invest $100,000 or more, $97,000 goes into the fund. $3,000 is the load, we call it. And then my broker dealer typically gets most of that, and I get what's called a payout. So I would tell you, if you're buying a traditional A share, listen, it would behoove us to get the best deal. And so I would tell you where the breakpoints are, and I would disclose it. First test question. I just told you the breakpoint is $100,000 or more. So Brian says, Dean, how much should I invest? I say you should invest $99,999.
Ouch.
And Brian says, yeah, ouch. He goes, why? I said, because I'll make $4,000. And if you give me another buck, Brian, I'm only going to make $3. You know, it's about me. That's called a breakpoint sale on every test. That's an unethical business practice. I wish other businesses were like ours, Brian, because sometimes I'll say, is there some deal I don't know about? Like, what do you mean? I was at the hotel and I saw people check out. I go, well, what people are paying for this room is all over the place. In my business, I have to tell people how to get the best deal. He said, well, Dean, are you here on business or leisure? I said, well, you tell me what the difference is, and I'll tell you what I'm here. He goes, Dean, if you're here on business, it's $400 a night. If you're on leisure, it's $200. I go, well, leisure it is. Now, in my example, Brian says, Dean, unfortunately, I don't have $100,000 for my initial investment. For my initial investment, I only have $80,000. I said, well, Brian, based on the breakpoint schedule, which varies from fund to fund, as stipulated in the prospectus at Franklin, I just told you it was 100 in my day. It looks like you're going to pay 4%. But if you, Brian, will sign, very testable, a letter of intent and tell Franklin that with over the next 13 months, you intend to invest another $20,000. We'll give you that 3% reduced sales charge up front. Brian, this will be great because you'll be able to buy additional fund shares. You can't be hurt, Brian, by signing the letter of intent. If you sign the letter of intent, the extra shares you get will be put in an escrow account. If you don't fulfill it, we'll back flag your account. It'll look exactly how it would have looked. So if there's any doubt, you ought to fill it out. He said, well, Dean, I'm not going to be able to do it, so there's no sense in filling it out. You know, he calls me 2 months later. He goes, damn, Dean, I should have filled it out. I just won the lottery. I said, well, Brian, good news. We can backdate that test question for 90 days. That 90 days is inclusive of the 13 months. Okay, so breakpoint, Brian gets it up front. Okay, so Brian says, Dean, I don't have the money, so I'm not going to do it. I said, well, Brian, do you think over your lifetime you might be able to come up with an additional $20,000? He said, well, I certainly think so. I hope so. I said, well, let's get you rights of accumulation. With rights of accumulation, Brian, you're not getting the reduced sales charge on the 80. That's the distinction. You're paying the 4% on the 80. But when you do cross the $100,000 breakpoint, on that and all additional investments, you get the reduced sales charge. So that's the distinction. I had Brian, a coffee card guy who I bought coffees from, and he told me after I buy 10 coffee cups, he gives me the free one. I said, oh, you got rights of accumulation. He goes, what's the hell that? I said, you're going to give me a deal after I prove I'm a good customer. You have to prove it first. And he thinks I'm nuts. I said, you know what you should do is you should do a letter of intent. Why don't I just sign the card saying I'm going to buy 10 and you give me the free one this morning? He said, well, how would I ask for the coffee cups? I go, well, I haven't figured that part out yet. How would I back flag you? I said, yeah. One morning, Brian, I forgot my wallet. When I went to him, he said, Dean, you forgot your wallet. You don't need to run back upstairs and get it. This one's on me. We're going to switch over to that thing you were talking about where you get to reduce the free coffee up front. I go, woo, another convert from rights of accumulation to that breakpoint. So that's the testable distinction. Is Celeroro? I hope I apologize. I'm probably messing that up. So that's the distinction. Brian, anything you want to add to that?
No, that's it. That's exactly it. I kind of drew it out here.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So there's that 100K. Boom.
Is a change in sales charges.
By the way, one other thing I would bring up as it regards to this, make sure as a baby broker, that's a term of endearment. But, Franklin Templeton fund distributors or American fund distributors or, Fidelity or T. Rowe, they have people who work at their firms called wholesalers. And boy, they are a strategic resource. And so I would recommend once you get all your testing done, see which mutual fund families are on your approved product list and call a wholesaler and say, hey, can you take me to lunch and tell me about your fund family? They'd love to do that. I worked with a guy who was a Franklin wholesaler. I wouldn't have made it in his business, Brian, without his help because I was pretty clueless, So I've done more practice. Yeah, practice, drill, and rehearse. Right? I'm an NBA fan and we're watching Steph do his thing. What we don't see is the practice, the drilling, and the rehearsing. Right? How many hours has he spent throwing up shots? Right? Getting those shots up. Past 3 weeks ago, 66 in 2 weeks. No, I have not. That's a test prep vendor thing. We think on both 65 and 66, test prep vendors and people in general really overestimate the amount of math they're going to have to do. In fact, Brian, I sometimes get math guys who go, oh, I can do math. I go, okay, great. 3 or 4 points, maybe. And it's not alpha. It's total return. It's current yield. It's balance sheet calculations. It's being able to understand what the input to the math is, the output of the math, and why you would do the math, not can you do the math. I'll turn over to Brian in a sec because he's not only a test geek, he's a math geek. But I would also tell you that in a live stream, Brian said I had a very important math 2, 3, 4 times in my career. Math that was really important. I had a guy named Lee, and he's made tens of thousands of dollars doing math for me. He's a genius. His math is going to be as pristine as anybody else's math on the other side of that table. Anyways, the guy on the live stream said, you shouldn't be in our business if you can't do your own math. I go, oh my God. First, I didn't say I couldn't do the math. I said, I choose not to. There's all kinds of people in our business who are math people, make a lot of money, and people who aren't math people make a lot of money. Brian, your thoughts on math as it relates to both 65 and 66?
Dean, there is an alpha calculation on both the 65, 66.
Yeah, but it's pretty simple, isn't it?
Well, that was my next point. It's far more simpler than that formula.
Before you get your board, let me see.
Social media has also given me a hard time. They say, well, you're not calculating alpha correctly. And I said, that's because you don't know what the test question is.
If you get alpha, here's how it goes. I say, listen, the market return was 15%. Our beta, I'll use an easier number, 10%. Beta's 1.5. So I say, Brian, our expected return would be 15% based on the risk and the volatility of the security we purchased. That's very testable. Right. The beta is a measurement of volatility. So then I say, hey, Brian, we got 13%. He goes, well, Dean, you underperformed. I say, we got 18%. Well, the 18%, would be compared to 15. That's 3% is the alpha. It's that simple. I gave you the negative one because that's negative alpha, right? So that customer shouldn't be happy if the beta is 1.5, market returns 10, and we got 13. We actually underperformed. So the alpha can be positive, negative. Any more complicated than that, Brian, you think?
No, that's it. And it's the negative one that you want to.
There you go. Well, there you said wink, wink, winky,
I
winky.
have a practice question on I think the 66 final, or my additional questions that mirrors the question.
Yeah, as we said, Brian has very strong correlation to the actual exam. I think he gives the best vibe of what's actual in the exam. We have competitors, Brian, people out there saying their exam has actual questions from the exams. And that's not true, because if it is, well, we can turn them in copyright infringement. I think Brian's exams give you the best vibe of what's actually on the test.
Yeah.
Looks like it's time for the drawing here in just a sec. Past the 65. Woohoo! Podcast. Love it, love it, love it. There you go. The gift or gratuity rule by Alex doesn't apply to the geek or the guru. The gift or gratuity rule does not apply. So send anything you'd like. Can you go in the bid and ask and market maker obligations? Well, I think we went in bid and ask earlier in this. We're past our closing time. So I'll tell you what, send me an email, dean@guruexamprep.com. I will send you a link to our next live session, and I'm more than happy to go over that with you. It's not as big a deal on 7, but on 10s, 24s, it certainly is. 57, it certainly is. Backing away is failing to honor a firm quote. I'll give you a good example right now. Brian works at an order entry firm. They don't have inventory in the security. I work at Citadel. I'm the guy on the trading desk. I'm the market maker in the security. Brian calls me and says, Dean, what's your quote? I said, my quote is 15, 16, 10 by 8. 15, 16, 10 by 8. So I just told him I'll buy 10 round lots into my inventory at 15. I'll sell 8 round lots, 800 shares out of my inventory at 16. That's called my spread. Now, remember, the customer is going to pay the high price, receive the low price. Brian says, Dean, we're selling 800 shares. I say, well, change my mind. He says, Dean, are you backing away? Test question for everybody. Backing away was when a market maker fails to honor a firm quote.
Right.
I said, what are you going to do about it? He said, well, Dean, I'm going to turn you into the Department of Enforcement. I go, never mind, you're filled. So a market maker has to honor their displayed size.
That's right.
Or if Brian asks me my size and I give it to, I have to honor that size. Yeah. I have to be obliged to do at least 100 shares on either side. So if I just say 15, 16, I got to at least do 1 round lot. Now, in the real world, Brian would say, Dean, are you a market maker or are you a mouse? I mean, if I'm only willing to do 100 shares, right? So, but send me the email. I'm more than happy to have you join us on a coaching call, and I'll go over it with you at length. If you're taking 2457, that's going to be a big deal. If you're taking a 7, I wouldn't worry too much about it. I don't have playlist promo. I have playlist 46. Not required. I think we did that one already. Are we coming down there? Yeah, the Judge is a great cigar, Alex. It's one of the best. Yeah, that's what I told you. Yeah, the Garcia family has like, what, 3 or 4 or 5 generations from Cuba on to Nicaragua. They just opened a factory. If you into Alex cigars like I am, they just opened a factory in Honduras, and they're now doing a My Father Blue, which is excellent. I ordered a box, Brian, and by the time I got there, they sold the box to the other people. I'm like, wait a minute.
He backed away.
Box. He had one overnight to me. I go, listen, put my box aside. But yeah, I want to make a living, so I'm not going to. I think he was surprised I wasn't so upset. There's only T+1. That's it. There's nothing that isn't T+1 except cash settlement or DTP. 48 means you got a deficit problem, Marcia. 66 means you're close. We need to get that up. Just pass the SIE. Okay. Boom. Does DERP still hold? It holds in this regard, Lisa. The X date emanates from the record, not the other way around. So all the following dates are set by the board of directors, except the one that isn't set by the board of directors is the X date. It's the same day as the record. It's the first date on which the stock no longer trades with the dividend attached. So that's what that DERP mnemonic is about. The X date is a function of the Uniform Practice Code, which standardizes practices within the securities industry.
It's all T1.
There we go. Try to listen. There you go. All right, Brian, I think we're ready for our 93 on options. My God, you're the guy who got 80, I think, right? Or gal.
Wow.
If you're the guy or gal who told us you were getting 80, you need to go test, my friend. By the way, and that's great, even if you're not. 93. Well, 10, you're not going to give me any options. I'm sorry to tell you this, but you're not getting any option questions on the 10. And 9. Have you done the 9 already? 77 is great. All right. Okay, Brian, looks like we're ready. Let me go get the Wheel of Fortune. Okay, giveaway tool. Let me put it over here. Now, wait to put, Brian's going to put on the board if you want to participate in our drawing. Brian's going to put what you need to put in the chat when I spin the wheel. You'll see the wheel spinning, but it's got to be exactly as Brian puts it on the board, and you got to give me time to put it in the machine. So don't do it till I tell you go. Okay, Brian, what are we going to do tonight?
Very easy.
January. I love it. Okay, so if you would like to win the coaching call drawing, you can now put that in. Let me go find share your screen with you. Share screen. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. There we go. So boom, boom, boom. We don't get rid of that. Okay, there you go. So put January into the chat. And we got 3 entries so far. And then I'll spin the Wheel of Fortune. And we'll see who wins the coaching call. And then we'll call it a night. We're here every Tuesday, 5 p.m. Arizona time. I say Arizona time because Arizona doesn't change its time. So sometimes Arizona time is Mountain time as it is now, and sometimes Arizona time is Pacific time. Any more participants? Now remember, you don't win tutoring at a date and time you're choosing. You win participation in the coaching call. Okay, going once. Any more entries? All right. I don't see Marcel tonight.
No Marcel.
I have to tell him you can't win if you don't play, Marcel. Where were you? All right, here we go. All right, our winner is Will Nathan. So go to deantenneytutoring.setmore.com. You'll see the coaching call tab, and you just hit that tab and register. If it's not there, that means I haven't put it up. I'll probably, if it's not there, I got to put it up in the morning. So it's up there. I told you I'm kind of booked. So I don't usually have anything for free on the booking page, but I have been opening up the office hours for paid students to people who I'm not tutoring just to provide access, because even if you tried to book tutoring with me, you might not find a slot because I'm completely booked. But that's open. We have a weekly, I try and do it weekly, but I have a Q&A jam session that's there, and that's free too. And you can book there at deantenneytutoring.setmore.com. That's also where you can book tutoring if you'd like to, and you can find a spot. All right, back to Brian and I. Remember, inch by inch, your exam's a cinch, and yard by yard, your exam is hard. And you say, Brian,
you got to learn to keep it simple. Stay with what you know. You take the test. Don't let the test take you.
All right, everybody. We'll see you next Tuesday. Bye-bye.